All right, everybody, so welcome back to another episode of Colton Posey Fishing. So today we're going to be talking about Texas rigs. So I'm sure all y'all know a lot about Texas rigs, but whether you're new to Texas rigging or whether you're, kind of a veteran at Texas rigging, this is a video you definitely don't want to miss. So stay tuned. This is something you don't want to miss. All right, so basically Texas rigging is when you take like your normal EWG hook, and then you've also got your round bend hooks. You've got you've got all different kinds of options when it comes to the Texas rigs, but one of the biggest things is understanding the difference between like a EWG and a round bend. So typically I run a round bend with your regular worms. So, your ribbon tail worms. I typically don't with a dinger. I like that EWG, the wide gap hook. That way I just feel like I get a better hook set when I'm using these EWG hooks with like a dinger or something like that. But with your regular ribbon tail worms, your round bend is great because you can swim that worm real efficiently. All right, so I'm basically going to show you, this is a round bend. This is just your regular ribbon tail 10-inch worm. Basically what you're going to be doing, I typically run this bait down until I get to the bend of the hook, right? And then I come up, and as you come up, you're going to twist it up. I typically like the head of the worm to come right at the knot, okay? So right there at the knot, I've got the bait up. You can't even see the eyelet. But then with the round bend, I typically go in until I see that worm or the hook just poking right there at the top, and then I stop. That keeps it perfectly weedless, and then I can reel this bait, and most of the time it's not going to twist and turn, okay? Your EWG is typically going to twist and turn. All right, so your EWG hooks is going to have, kind of like that long tapering point, and it's going to come out pretty far from the hook. What I basically do with this, it's very, very similar. I go into the bend, I bring the bait through, and then I twist it up, okay? And I'm doing the same thing. I've got it at the top, but instead of barely hooking the inside, I make a complete 90-degree bend, and I push the hook through until it gets close to the bend. When it gets close to the bend here at the bottom, I take that bait and I barely hook the skin of the worm. This makes it weedless. Here's the thing, with you rigging this worm like this, it is going to twist and turn in the water. So this is typically a technique that I do when I'm flipping grass or when I'm dragging a worm or something like that across the bottom. It works way more efficient when you're doing that. This little bend in the worm really doesn't affect the action. A lot of times actually it triggers fish bites, because as that bait hits the water, it will spin in a circle just like this as it goes down. So that's typically the way that I rig it. And then you can run anything from a fluke. You do the same thing with a fluke, okay? You can do it with a crawl. You can do it any kind of soft plastic. You can Texas rig, and it's typically really, really efficient when it comes to bass fishing, period. It's a good way to catch fish winter all the way to the next winter, okay? So you'll catch plenty of fish on a Texas rig. All right, so now getting into the bread and butter. We're going to talk about the setup, okay? So y'all know, I think y'all know, I told you a while back that, the Abbey Garcia Black Maxes were discontinued. They were on sale, so I'm running a Black Max. I like a lower gear ratio, typically anything from 7.5 to 1 and under on my Texas rig. That way I have a lot of power, but also if I need speed, I can just speed up with the reel handle, right? But the main thing is we want a good drag system, something that's efficient, something that's comfortable. Whatever you're comfortable with, use that, but I recommend 7.5 to 1 or lower gear ratio. That way you still have torque. Rod, this is an impulse rod. This is Lance's Fight. This is one of my favorite rods in the world. This is a 7'1" medium heavy fast action rod. I like a medium heavy fast action rod when it comes to Texas rigs, okay? So the Texas rig, the 7 foot, I say 7 foot all the way to 7'3". If you're a slackliner, so you get a lot of slack line in your Texas rig setup, then definitely go with longer style setup. So 7 foot all the way up to a 7'3". 7'1" is fine. Whatever you can afford to get it, practice with it, it's good for you. All right, so one of the most important things is the line, right? So we got to have a good line. I run fluorocarbon, mono's fine. I typically don't use braid. I do not like braid. I'm not a fan of braid, so I typically stick to fluorocarbon. Now I run a 15-pound red label Seaguar. Fluorocarbon is what I run. I like that typically just because it's very, very comfortable. I don't have many brakes on it. 15 pounds, I can flip it up in grass. I can run it across points. It doesn't really seem to affect the fish. So 15-pound fluorocarbon, 15-pound mono, something like that. 12 pounds fine. I run 12-pound for years. Quit being scared, and I got the 15-pound. I've been happy with it ever since. So now we're going to talk about weights. So like what kind of weights you would typically want to run. Now you've got your standard, where's it at? No, I've got some somewhere. Either way, you've got your, here it is. You've got your typical lead weights, okay? So your lead bullet weights, used them for years. They're good. Nothing wrong with that. That's all you can get it. That's fine. And then you've also got your tungsten weights, okay? The biggest difference is the noise, okay? So it's gonna make a different noise. One's smaller in diameter and heavier at the same time, so that's good also with the tungsten weights. So, you know, kind of buy whatever you can afford, but typically I keep it very simple. I have 1/4 ounce, I have 3/8 ounce, and then I have 1 ounce. That's it. That's all that I have. I don't worry about different weights. 1/4 ounce, it gives me a plenty slow enough fall. If I'm flipping up against the bank and stuff, we'll kind of want to get that slow taper. I can still reel it real efficient and keep it at whatever depth I want. 3/8, I can get into deep stuff, or I can reel that bait faster and keep it higher in the water column. So there's multiple things that I can do when it comes to that. All right, so one of the things we're going to talk about is pegging versus no pegging. Typically 90% of the time, I'm pegging this bait, okay? So what that means is this little black notch right here, I've got it where the weight is pegged. So when this bait turns upside down, the weight doesn't slide down, right? So that's a good little trick if you want to go through a lot of heavy cover, if you don't want this bait rolling near as much and stuff like that, you can peg it. You've got this wired up mess, and it's got a little hole in it, and you'll run your line through there, and you'll simply just pull that rubber ball up on your line and then just run it up however far. Now, what I do recommend, anytime you're putting a peg on, lubricate your line. So, you know, wet your line with slobber or whatever you got. It doesn't matter, Real Magic, whatever you can put on your line to lubricate it, it doesn't matter. But especially with fluorocarbon and stuff, if it gets any kind of nick or anything like that in it, then, you know, take a chance of breaking off. But it's a really, really smart technique. You can throw up in wood cover, grass, or whatever, and you're typically not going to get hung up near as much. All right, so another little technique that you can do, you can actually take these, you can buy glass or you can buy plastic. They both have a different sound to them. I've always just bought the plastic, but you can get red, you can get clear, you can get black or whatever. But basically you're going to put your weight up on your line, and then the ball is going to sit just like this on the line. And with it being on the line like this, that weight will slide up and down and it will hit that ball. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it'll make a clicking sound in the water. So a lot of times that can help attract fish, especially in those muddy water conditions, to help find your bait, okay? So they're not just searching and roaming and looking for that bait the entire time. But either way, guys, I hope the video helped you a lot. If it did, make sure to like, subscribe. If you have any questions, always comment down below. I'm happy to answer your questions. If you're able, we also have members. So it's $2 a month. You get my content early, and then you can ask your questions early so I can get right back to you and stuff like that. It helps me out a lot with gas, equipment, and stuff like that. But either way, guys, I really appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.